Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm with Brian Walker, and we're going to be exploring some of the mysteries of sword and sandal cinema, in this case, birthdays. Greetings, Brian. How are you?
I am well tonight, Hercules. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Oh, great. January is a big month for Peplum birthdays. And we've got three heavy hitters too. Mark Forrest, Steve Reeves, and Dan Vadis were all born in the month of January. And I thought there's no better time to talk about them and their careers.
I would heartily agree with you.
But first off, let me ask you this. If you could look like one of these men, who would it be? Mark Forrest, Steve Reeves, or Dan Battis?
I don't know. Usually, ideally, I'd like to look like Reg Park,
Oh, okay. All right.
or even Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, okay.
Or The Rock is Hercules. I like the shape that he had. I like the other physiques because they were within the template of Hercules that was established by Steve Reeves, and that's the template upon which a lot of exercise programs are based. And that's the physique that during the physical culture days was the ideal. But I hadn't really thought about that. I guess Steve Reeves, because he's the first and he's recognizable among the three you listed.
I would actually want pieces of all three, if I could do it. But to tell you the truth, I got to say, mostly from here down, I would want Dan Battis' body. He's really tall. He was something like 6'4", 6'5", and whenever you watch one of his movies, he towers over everybody else. I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm not short or anything like that. But I would love that height. That would have been awesome. And I just like the way he's built. He's in fantastic shape, but
Mhm.
not as big as Parks or you mentioned Lou Ferrigno as well. He doesn't have that upper body, size. I guess I should say like either one of them or Mark Forrest for that matter, because he does have that build. I think among the three of them, he's probably probably the beefiest one, of the three. Mark Forrest.
Yes. Yeah, Mark Forrest, I can recall his musculature. I can recall Steve Reeves is the other one. The third one, I can't offhand picture him.
Ah, okay. Well, his first movie was with Mark Forrest, so the Colossus of the Arena. He had a supporting role in it, and there's some interesting tie-ins among all three actors. I should probably start off with Mark Forrest. Actually, Dan Vadis's birthday comes first. He was born January 3rd. But Mark Forrest is the one that I started off with, and his birthday was January 6th. As you know, that is not his real name. When he was a competitive bodybuilder, he was known as Lou Degny or Lorenzo Louis Degny from Brooklyn, New York, so close to home for you. And he was Italian with that name. Um, goes to goes to figure. He could also speak Italian, and that was one of the things that gave him a leg up on some of his competitors when it came to going to Italy to star in some of these Peplum films because he could speak Italian. Most of the American actors could not.
Yeah, I can see
Interesting.
that being a great advantage.
Hmm. And did you ever collect physical culture magazines, like the really old ones from the 30s, 40s, or 50s?
I did for a while. It proved to be a very expensive hobby, and recently, one of our other hosts sent me a gift of like four or five old muscle magazines.
Hmm. Well, they, especially in the 1940s, they sort of, well, in the late 30s and early 40s, they sort of took a turn. And you saw, well, they had more photos and such, especially following World War II. Well, around the end of World War II is when Lou Degny or Mark Forrest started working out. He was about a teenager. He's about 13, I would say, 12 or 13 years old. And he was inspired by, the physique culture of, well, getting in toward mid-century America, really. Um, and there was a certain World War II did something to this country. I think it did something to the country's psyche. Kind of pumped it up. I guess the Depression had probably beaten so many people down, worldwide. I mean, not obviously not just in the U.S. But the triumph during World War II, at the end of World War II, and all of the technology um, that came out of World War II, it all sort of just shifted, American attitudes and ideals, and well, it did it all over the world, obviously. But for the U.S., it kind of did lend itself to superheroes. It lent itself to wanting to be larger than life and to save the world, which among other countries, the U.S. had a big hand in ending World War II, obviously. Not to discount any other country's efforts as well. And yeah, I could see where the changing tides in America and getting close to the middle of the century as well would have turned one's focus inward a little bit. Before that, and especially during the Depression, I think the focus for a lot of people was more community and family and more than anything else. After World War II, you did seem to see more of a shift, inward, more of the Pepsi generation, coming out. Really, I mean, if you look at generational shifts and such, I think that's a good place to start with it. And he was very successful early on, and very dedicated to his fitness regime. And it led him to the point where he was, kind of making waves in the sport of bodybuilding early, when he was a teenager. And for somebody who was 18, 19, 20 years old, he had managed to build his body up. Usually you have to be about 25 or so before you can hit like peak physical condition and size. I think that's sort of the minimum age, and he was able to do that as a teenager, which is amazing. Most 18-year-old teenagers are just not built like that, obviously. um, and at a time when diet was a little more, um, perhaps harder to stick to, because you couldn't get um, fresh food, at all times of the year. Well, you could, I guess, in New York, but it would have been really expensive. Most people could not. Even I can remember back when I was a little kid going grocery shopping with my mom, let's say late 60s or early 70s. In the winter, the produce section was pretty lame. Um, there just wasn't a whole lot there, and what was there was the pink tomatoes and things. you know, yeah, it's produce, but it doesn't taste very good. So it was harder to get fresh food back then, and if you could, it was very expensive. Commensurately, from what I understand, food was more expensive back then than it is now overall. Although that may have changed here very recently. Food prices do seem to be on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, they do.
But there again, Lou Degny was so successful at it, at bodybuilding, that he started his own gymnasium in the early to mid 1950s. I couldn't find an exact date, or even the name of the gymnasium. It was somewhere on Long Island, but I really have no idea where. In my searching, I could not find that information. And that's kind of an Steve Reeves' life is really well documented. You can practically call up a date, at one point during his life, and you could have figured out what he was doing on that particular date. For Mark Forrest, and especially for Dan Vadis, there's just not a whole lot of biographical information. And I think there's one reason for that when it comes to Mark Forrest or Lou Degny. He went very far in the sport of bodybuilding. By the time he was, I think, about 21 years old, he'd been Mr. Venice Beach. He'd also, he also, I think, won Mr. Muscle Beach in Venice, California, as well at some point. And where do you go from there? Well, he kind of drifted into entertainment the same way that a lot of the Peplum actors did. He became part of the Mae West Las Vegas troupe of muscle men back in the mid 1950s, and he performed alongside other bodybuilders. And there's a long list of these guys. There's George Eiferman, really popular in the 1940s, and he was also in a couple of movies, interestingly, as well. Might want to check one of those out at some point. Dick Dubois, Zabo, Joe Gold, Armand Tanny, Gordon Mitchell was in a lot of those shows. Mickey Hargitay and Chuck Krauser. And there were others, but those are just some of the highlights there. And that bodybuilder review started in 1954 at the Sahara in Las Vegas. The very first time I went to Las Vegas, which was, oh, golly, I was, I don't know, in my 20s, I stayed at the Sahara, interestingly.
Great.
Sadly, it's gone. It was raised, oh, golly, years ago. I want to say probably 20, 25 years ago, a long time ago. At the time, it was kind of fairly, it was way up on the strip. But now it would be like mid-strip because Vegas has grown so much, over the last, well, 70, 80 years. But that's where the review started. And when Gordon, obviously, when Gordon Mitchell was still alive, he sent me, lots of information and photographs and such. And one of the things that he sent me was a facsimile of a program from the Sahara
Oh, wow.
for the review, which is really cool. It's very small and it's nothing I ever scanned in and put on the website. But just in going through some of the stuff, I've saved. He's sent reams of stuff to me. During the last, I want to say like 4 or 5 years of his life. Sent all kinds of information, really interesting stuff. He was wild to talk to.
I had several conversations with Mark Forrest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to arrange an interview on Sword and Sandal Cinema. It didn't come to pass. He passed before we could make anything happen. But he was very interesting, and in his conversations, he focused just as much on the other things he did, not just the Sword and Sandal Cinema. It seems he had a very wide and diverse entertainment background, and he was proud of all of it.
And making Peplum films was a very short part of his life.
Mm-hmm.
It was compartment. There were about a dozen movies. They were made within, let's say, a 3 or 4 year period. It was all very condensed for him. And making that many movies and trying to stay in that kind of shape must have been a 24-hour-a-day job that had, to stay looking like that at all times in making, let's say, 3, 4 pictures a year. That was a lot. He probably didn't have a whole lot of time for anything else, quite honestly. But going back to the Mae West review, he was a part of that for, I think, 3 or 4 years. It lasted roughly from 1954 to 1957, although Gordon said that even after it supposedly had kind of ended, they would still occasionally go back out and do a few shows, here and there. And that was into like late 1950s, like 59, 60, somewhere like that. But the heyday of Mae West's review was, we'll say, 54 to 57. And, a lot of things happened. For one thing, it revived Mae West's career. She was 61 years old by the time the review started. And her movie career had kind of ended with censorship in the mid to late 1930s. She had to go around with one arm tied behind her back, and even the double entendres they were able to pick up on, to Hayes' office after a while. And she kind of got robbed of her career, quite honestly. I mean, I don't know if you've ever watched any of Mae West's films, especially the old ones
Yeah.
from the early 30s. They're
Not
br
in many years, but I've seen many of them.
they're brilliant, and she's amazing, very extremely charismatic, hilarious, really great comedian. I don't think she was ever given her fair due for that. Um, and in the early movies, like She Done Him Wrong, that's the one she made with Cary Grant. So a very early screen role for him. That's pre Hayes Code. I think that's like 31 or 32, and she's able to get away with a lot more. And it's just gangbusters. It's a shame what happened to her career, but suddenly in the mid 1950s, she's back. The Mae West Review was wildly popular. It sold out in a lot of its locations. It was primarily in Vegas, but occasionally they would do shows. They would travel to New York and do shows in the Latin Quarter, um, and various very large cities. Mae West Inner 60s had, and with all of the men in the troupe, that was a pretty expensive road show for her. So you had to play big, expensive venues to make it pay off, and it did. Incredibly popular. It kind of ended, interestingly. I think it was probably a publicity stunt. But at one point, Chuck Krauser, who wound up taking care of Mae West, at the very end of her life, and Mickey Hargitay got into a fight during a press conference that Mae West was holding about the review. It just so happened to have all these journalists and reporters around during the fight. So I think it was probably staged. It's just too coincidental. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But anyway, I mean, great publicity, in the mid 1950s, and it really pumped up her, uh, persona, as well, to have these, otherwise young virile men getting into a fight over her affections. She apparently had a thing for Mickey Hargitay, but he was seeing Jane Mansfield. I could see where Mae West probably wouldn't have appreciated the competition, especially since Jane Mansfield at the time had just blown up, and was one of the most popular people on the planet for a little while. And it was great publicity. So I'm not certainly not certainly understand why she would have done it back then. You play the press for all you can, and again, though, I mean, it put her back on the map. It made her somebody. Um, and it gave all of them, career exposure as well. From his experience in the review, Gordon Mitchell, for example, started getting other roles. It's very small ones, but nonetheless, he found that he had a great affinity for acting, just performing, just being part of the review, and then taking on some bit work here and there. Mark Forrest, however, was never a bit player. He comes in as a star and he goes out as well. Which, hey, it's great work if you can get it. If you come in on top, stay in until you can't do it anymore, and then leave. And he made some great movies too. He there's trying to think of the Goliath and the Dragon for me is probably my favorite one of Mark Forrest. It certainly seems to be the one that had the biggest budget, and it is well done. The
Yes,
last one, I'm sorry, what?
yes, it is.
The last one he did was Kendar the Invulnerable, and that was at the end of the Peplum cycle. But if you go back and watch his movies, I think they are perhaps more of a consistent quality than anybody else's movies, maybe except for Reg Park and Steve Reeves. They're consistently of very high quality, good production values. So maybe some of the best casts, quite honestly, around Mark Forrest too. If you watch his films, but he wasn't it just wasn't for him. He just wasn't into the whole spectacle of filmmaking. Unlike some of his uh, fellow Peplum stars. And his career took a left turn right after the genre failed. Whereas a lot of other actors in Peplum films kind of leaned into the new genre. One of those would be Eurospy, another would be spaghetti westerns. Dan Vadis and uh, Gordon Mitchell, Brad Harris, all went through some of those. Even Mickey Hargitay did a couple of spaghetti westerns. But Mark Forrest, he just chopped it off right there and decided that what he wanted to do was sing opera. And good on him for that. I like somebody who's versatile enough to just say, no, this isn't for me. I'm going to move on and do what it is that I really want. And he studied with Giovanni Milo, who was a famous opera singer from, I think I want to say like 30s, 40s in Italy, and his children are also opera singers, and I think they're about 70 now. He had a daughter and a son, but he studied under him in Europe and was an opera singer in Europe for probably, I want to say, like 8, 10 years, a long time. And I think that's fantastic that he was able to do that. And he came back to I think he moved back to California, or moved to California, I should say. I want to say mid to late 70s, and started teaching and offering the service as a vocal coach, and did that for a long time.
Very versatile man.
Yeah, and I like somebody who follows his heart like that too. Some people might stay in it for the money. There were a couple of Peplum actors. Gordon Scott comes to mind. He didn't think much of being an actor, but he liked those paychecks. And you see a lot of actors who will make comments like that. He said, just shut up, put on the suit, take the check, which I certainly understand. But I also understand it just not being your thing, or maybe he had always wanted to be an opera singer. I don't know. Like I said, there's just not a whole lot of information on it. I mean, at least you knowing that you got to talk to him, can you fill in any, or did he mostly talk about his opera career?
He talked about the various things he'd done. He wanted to know what the show was about, and I just basically told him it's a celebration of the Peplum genre mostly. I listed several celebrities who had been on the show already,
Mm.
time, and basically told him that it would be his life, his work, and his vision of the world. And I'd ask him some questions that people dropped in the group and so forth. But we can never schedule it. It was always he's busy doing something, and then we'll talk about it in a few months' time. But he made it clear very consistently that he's much more than his Peplum career, and that his Peplum career was part of his journey, but it wasn't a big part of his journey, and he's done other things. So I assured him that I would cover the other things as well.
Mm.
It didn't happen, alas.
That's a shame, but at least you gave it your best shot.
Yes, I did.
And that's all you really can do. But you at least you got to talk to him, well,
Yeah,
which I think is awesome. It's nothing I don't think I ever communicated with him at all. Now that I think about it, or if I did, it was like 30 years ago, a long time ago. And the older I get, the more stuff starts to drop out of my head.
I can identify with that.
You only have so much room for stuff, and
Yes,
when you live like 60, 70 years, you've had so many experiences. There's so many things to remember that I think you just have so much room, and every once in a while you just have to dump. It's like a hard drive. The space on it's finite, and after a while, when there's just no more space, you got to start dumping things.
yep.
Hopefully, it's emotional baggage that you dump. Um, But I don't think a lot of people do that, unfortunately. I think they just accumulate that and they dump everything else. Uh,
That's very true. That's a whole other show with that topic.
well, it is, isn't
One of the psychology shows we have.
it? Anyway, this is a good time to transition over to Dan Vadis, who sadly didn't live very long. He was about 49 or 50 years old
Oh, I'm so
when
sorry.
he passed away. Um, but he was born in Shanghai, China. His parents were missionaries. He's spent part of his youth in China, but he was actually Greek, interestingly.
Yes.
And he there's not a whole lot about him either. Most sources say that he was born on January 3rd, 1938. There are a few of them that say that he was born in 1934 or 1935. From what I understand, the 1938 date is probably the one that's authentic. Um, but there's not a whole lot known about it. And sadly, even his family, didn't know a great deal about him either. He went into the armed forces. I'm trying to remember. He went to I think in the Navy. Now that I think about it, right around the time he graduated from high school in 1956, did about like a 2.5, 3 year stint in the Navy, and then got out in I think '59, somewhere around there, and that's when he met Gordon Mitchell, and he had gone to Dan Vadis had gone to the Sahara and had seen the show and struck up a friendship with Gordon Mitchell. Apparently, the two bonded pretty quickly as well. Gordon had been a school teacher in the late 40s and into the mid to late 1950s. And since he taught I think he taught pretty close to Venice Beach. He knew a lot of the physical culturists who would hang out at Muscle Beach, there in Venice, and got to know a lot of the youths. And he would have been about 15 years older or so than Dan Vadis, and he was not really not really a father figure or anything like that, but certainly somebody older looking out for him. Um, and he just with the success that Gordon Mitchell was having in the early 1960s, he um, was asked if he knew anybody else, who would want to make these films, and one of the persons that he recommended was Dan Vadis, and so he helped it launch his career. His first movie was with Mark Forrest, and that was the Colossus of the Arena. And he's got a pretty decent supporting role in it. He's on screen quite a bit. He's got a lot to do. He's not just in the background. Incidentally, Gordon also helped bring Samson Burke over, and the three of them lived together for a little while.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Gordon Mitchell appears in a lot of stories of these Peplum stars. He seems to be the connecting thread that
You are right. He really, and he was the one who knew everybody, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. For one thing, he acted forever. He was in the review early on. He You watched a lot of those people, come up through the ranks at Muscle Beach. He was, I think, largely he was just in the right place at the right time, very often, throughout his life. But anyway, eventually, Dan Vadis, got bigger and better roles, and he's in a couple of my favorites. He's in Triumph of the Ten Gladiators, which I think is really good and a lot of fun to watch. In the Ten Gladiators as well. The one that I have on right now is Spartacus in the Ten Gladiators. That's the one where he has the beard that doesn't look quite right. Um, I don't know if I can't tell if it's a paste on beard or if it's his actual beard, but it just it doesn't look right to me. It just has an odd look. It doesn't flatter him at all. Some people, I mean, I think Reg Park looks better in a beard. Steve
yeah,
Reeves,
yes.
Steve Reeves looks better in a beard. But some of the actors didn't, and Dan Vadis is one of them. Gordon Mitchell looks better, or I'm sorry, Gordon Scott looked better, clean shaven too. He didn't look bad with the beard, but he looked better clean shaven. Steve Reeves looks better with the beard,
Yes, he does.
and maybe it was just the way it was cut, but I think it actually enhanced his face, and that's I think it's one of the reasons why we identify a beard now, with that character.
Well, in antiquity, sometimes he was portrayed as bearded and sometimes as clean shaven. So they had that in antiquity as well. Some, I guess, Hercules they had back then looked better with beards and some didn't.
I when I was younger, I looked better without one. Now I think I look better with one.
I cut my beard when my son was very young, my oldest son, and he started crying. I said, "What happened to my dad? My dad has a beard." So that's the last time I shaved off my beard.
That was with your oldest?
Yes, yes. He's now in his 40s, so this was
Oh wow.
kind of
Okay.
so I have the beard continues to. I grew a beard when I was 11, and I've had it for most of the time straight. I shaved it on or off when I was a teenager, but ever since my son cried, it broke my heart. So the beard, I'll just keep the beard, and I'll be my son's dad.
I grew mine. I think I was around 40 or so. When my face started shifting and my upper lip just started disappearing, I thought, "Whoa, I bet you better do something here." And mustaches weren't in style at the time, so I went with the goatee. I've mostly had it for the last 20 years or so. Every once in a while, it's disappeared.
Yeah, I trim it today. I trimmed it. It was getting bushy again, so I trimmed it.
I can't really shave it now because I've gotten so much sun damage over the years, especially in my middle years. So whenever I do shave it, I look like Deputy Dog, the Hanna-Barbera character,
Uh-huh.
where I've got this weird pale shadow that goes around where my skin hasn't gotten quite so much sun damage.
I haven't thought of Deputy Dog in years, and then Deputy Dog came up in the conversation recently, and now he comes up again today. I guess I have to Google Deputy Dog, see if there's some message for me from the universe in the figure.
Maybe so, the cartoon. I loved. I haven't seen a Deputy Dog cartoon, gosh, since I was a kid. But I loved him at the time. I thought it was funny.
Hmm.
I actually had a dog named Deputy Dog. Now that I think about it, it was a stray that came to live with us,
Very cool.
and he kind of looked like Deputy. I don't. He kind of looked like him too.
Yeah, we had lots of cartoons in like Courageous Cat and Minute Mouse and Underdog and lots of animal cartoons.
I saw a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff when I was a kid, which would be late '60s. Um, things like Top Cat, uh,
Yes, Top Cat.
McGilla Gorilla,
Hmm.
Jetsons, Scooby Doo, Hair Bear Bunch. Oh gosh, Wally Gator. I liked Wally Gator a lot.
Yeah, I like Alligator too. I also
Mm.
like although I was much older by the time they came out, not so much Peplum, but the action hero cartoons like Thundar the Barbarian and He-Man and Masters of the Universe and Black Star, I think his name was. There were a lot of these sword and sandal, sword and planet type of heroes at the time.
Hmm.
I was already an adult, but I still enjoyed them.
Though you can watch animation as an adult. There's nothing wrong with that. At least I hope.
They
Do you,
brought back He-Man. Have you seen the clips? The promotional
no.
clips? Yeah, they brought back He-Man and they made it to look like the toys, unlike the previous He-Man movie, which was I guess on a budget and before they had AI. This one looks like the toys have come to life and are battling each other.
Has it been released yet?
No, the trailer's been released and there are announcements coming out about it.
Okay, no, I haven't. I've kind of lost touch with what's. I haven't been to the theater now for, ooh, gosh, it's probably been close to 3 months.
Yeah, we
Uh,
haven't been there for longer.
I've just been so busy, and I haven't really been following what's um, been released. I know I'm behind on horror films, but I just haven't had the time to do it.
Yeah, with me, it's my getting older problems that prevent us from going to theater. I have like back arthritis in my spine and all sorts of other things, so
Mhm.
makes it difficult to go out and to keep balanced and so forth. But everything's out so fast on the TV that, you know, it's almost not worth it to go to theater.
Well, I mean, you got a point there. For me, the biggest problem with being at a theater is not having a pause button, and I do not have the bladder to sit through like a 2.5 hour movie.
Neither do I anymore. Yeah.
I just don't. I never did. I just, I've got to be able to press pause. And for me, the whole movie experience has been kind of communal, and like I said, I just haven't had the time to do it. And I kind of miss it too because it was a good way to go out with friends, go out to dinner, and then go to the movie, or vice versa.
Yeah, with me, I'm very fortunate in that Athena, my wife, likes the same type of movies I do for the most part.
Hmm.
So she likes superhero movies, she likes horror movies, she likes action and adventure movies, sword and sandal, sword and sorcery, all that type of stuff. So we never have a problem finding a movie that we both want to see. And we used to have date night at least once a month where we go see a movie, then we go to our favorite Mexican or other restaurant, and that made it a night. And then with the pandemic, we couldn't do that because of the pandemic for the most part. The theaters started closing and it became too much of a hassle. We tried going to mall theaters, and the experience just wasn't one we found pleasing. And we didn't, the mall foods, although there were a couple of restaurants in that we would go to, they weren't the same as going to the neighborhood places that we liked. So we just gave it up after a while.
Now I understand. I mean, like I said, we're down to one set of theaters too. We have the AMC's at the mall, and I think there's, I don't know, like 15 theaters within the AMC, but half of them are showing the same movie. So,
Yeah.
and it's been ours has been renovated within the last, I want to say, 10 years or so. So the chairs are better. They recline. They have heat, cup holders, that sort of thing. They're not the miserable ones that I remember from when I was a kid that were just old and dead. Especially if you're in an old theater. Uh, they would have chairs from the 1930s and 1940s that had just given up the ghost years ago. Oh God, those were uncomfortable.
And they didn't sweep between movies, so you had all the popcorn and stuff like that.
Well, our AMC has revived that. They don't clean up either. I mean, that place is a mess.
Maybe
Uh,
detracts from the nostalgic theater experience a bit. They want,
well, perhaps you're and the sticky floors,
yeah,
from all of the you know
soda. It's like, yeah,
the pop, the Coke that had been spilled and everything like that. But anyway, getting back to Dan Vadis, his career started rolling along pretty well in Peplum films, and then Peplum went out of vogue. But he had figured out that acting was a pretty good gig. He would, if you watch his movies, and if you just, since he is a bit leaner than some of the other actors, he can really jump. And Gordon Mitchell said he could jump 7 feet high. I don't know if that was
wow.
I don't know if that's exaggeration or the truth, but he really lithe, really athletic, fun to watch in those movies. He, especially in his gladiator films, his Spartacus and the Ten Gladiators, and Triumph of the Ten Gladiators and the Ten Gladiators. He gets to joust a lot, and he's good at it. I mean, and it looks good on screen. It's not a talky movie. There's a lot of action to watch in his films. But when that was over, he just decided to hang around in Europe, much like Gordon Mitchell had. and found other acting jobs. And you can see him in a couple of Commissar X, Eurospy-ish adjacent movies in the mid '60s. You can see him in a lot of westerns, and you can see him in a lot of mainstream movies too. And then he did a movie once with Burt Lancaster and Shelley Winters called The Scalp Hunters, which used to, I think it used to be on Turner Classic Movies every now and then. Now that we don't have TCM, unfortunately. Well, that's not exactly true. We do have it. Don't listen to me on that one. We actually do have it. I don't watch it much anymore, though. But something apparently happened on the set of The Scalp Hunters, and I'm not really sure what the circumstances were, but apparently Dan Vadis and Shelley Winters had a parting of the ways, for lack of a better term, on the set, and not really sure what the source of it was. I never really saw any information on that. According to Gordon Mitchell, although people generally liked Dan Vadis, if you pushed him too far, uh, you were going to, get beaten up, essentially. And, apparently, he and Shelley Winters, Gordon Mitchell said that he hit Shelley Winters. He was so mad at her. I don't know what happened out of this. I don't know what precipitated it. But apparently that was kind of the end of Dan's appearance in the Scalp Hunters. Uh, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not really sure what happened there. I know Shelley Winters, if you read anything about her, if you read one of her autobiographies, I think she wrote three or something like that. I read the first one, that Shelley, also known as Shirley. Um, Unfortunately, that one ends in the mid '50s, and she didn't get into the middle part of her career. And I think that's the name of her second book, the My Middle Years or something like that. And she doesn't mention the Scalp Hunters in the second book, unfortunately. But I would like to know exactly what happened there. She could be volatile from time to time too. So and she also had a habit of trying to or sleeping with her co-stars, and then getting into volatile relationships with them as well. So I don't know. I don't know if she hit on him or what. But she did have a track record of doing that. Do you know who Don Stroud is?
The name rings bells, but I can't summon an image.
He was in biker films in the '60s and '70s. Really good character actor. Not a bad looking guy either. He was probably 20 plus years younger than Shelley Winters, but they had an affair on a set. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's a crime drama. It's early '30s. I can't remember the name of the movie. So then that was just kind of par for the course, for some people. And that's the only way you get to meet anybody too. Really, if you think, you meet people at work, and if you're making movies, I could see where, something like that might, get started. Um, Certainly, what Shelley Winters certainly wasn't the only one who did stuff like that. I mean, Burt Lancaster, oh my God, and Shelley Winters had an affair with him as well. Um, but a lot of people did. So I mean, I think there was a line to get to Burt Lancaster at some point. Seems that way anyway. Now I don't know if she and Burt Lancaster were doing anything on the set of Scalp Hunters. Now I have no idea about that. She didn't say, because I think they had an affair like earlier, but it could have come back around too. Who knows? Ships that pass in the night.
I'm sure it made the magazines of the day, the gossip magazines.
Well, I mean, she had a couple of volatile marriages too. Especially when she married Tony Franciosa.
Hmm.
who was, a well-known actor, primarily in the 60s and 70s. I think they got married in the late 50s before he became a bigger name. Their relationship was really volatile. Um, and that did get into the tabloids quite a bit.
She was
And
just being volatile then, so she had a reputation for being volatile, and people were forewarned that she was volatile.
well, but I also think that she hung out with volatile people. I don't think it was just her. But that said, though, she also had a habit of pulling knives on um, her paramours if she found them screwing around. She found out that Tony Franciosa was sleeping with Lauren Bacall, uh, and it didn't go down very well.
No,
She she was
I'd imagine not.
ready to go. um, Great actress, by the way. I think she's fabulous. If you ever watch her old
She
film
was
roles,
passionate, I guess.
and there for a little while, she made a lot out of the fact that she and Marilyn Monroe were once roommates. They lived together for about a year or so, and were friends until Marilyn died.
So she didn't pull a knife on Marilyn for any reason, though.
Oh, I didn't know. No, she seemed to have a lot of sympathy, respect, sympathy for what happened to Marilyn Monroe, and then just general respect. I mean, they were really good friends.
I'm glad she had that.
But they were such different types. You would never put them together, in a living arrangement. If you watch any of Shelley Winter's old movies, especially the ones where she's kind of a glamour girl, she's kind of a dish. She's pretty good in film noir. She's good as that hard bitten blonde. And Marilyn Monroe just was not that at all, and never played those roles. And I'm not sure she could have gotten away with it. She was great in what she did, but just two completely opposite uh, character types. But yeah, they he was known for being kind of rough and tumble. Getting into fights was not a problem, for him. I don't think he was necessarily a belligerent person, but if it called, if you got on his nerves, I think you were going to get punched. Uh, and unfortunately, it spilled over into other areas of his life. Since he had great physique, able to do so much with his body. He thought he could control other things too, and got into some drug use. Um, Sadly, in the late 70s and early 1980s, it came to a head. He got married around the same time and had a couple of kids. One of his children passed away in infancy around, I think, 1982, 1983, uh, something of that nature. And he didn't live much longer than that. He was found dead in a car in 1987. And toxicology reports stated that he had a variety of substances in his system, and it got the better of him. But even before that, according to what I recall Gordon Mitchell saying, and I found an interview with him online with William Connolly, where he made the statement that he was already he'd been sick for a few years because his liver was shot from all the crap that he'd been doing. And he, like Gordon said, he thought he could control it, and it got the better of him. Addiction doesn't. You don't control it; it controls you. Sadly,
Controls you.
yeah.
I don't get addicted to much, but I was addicted to cigarettes for a while, and that was very
Ooh,
rough. I haven't smoked now in nearly a quarter of a century.
I used to smoke. I
But
uh,
that was hard, so I can sympathize with any person who's addicted to something.
mhm. That's the hardest thing I've ever had to do was quit smoking.
Yeah, when I worked in human services in like a hospital, we had units for people who were addicted, and some folks said that cigarettes were harder to give up than heroin.
Hmm. I never did anything like that. I never
Nor have
no,
I.
no hard drugs or anything like that. I used to have an alcohol problem. Um, I wouldn't really call myself an alcoholic because I didn't to stop. I didn't need a 12-step program or anything like that, you know. But I used to. I was in a really nasty habit of drinking heavily. Um, didn't do my weight any favors either. And getting away from it was a very good thing. But that was easy. I just stopped buying.
Yeah, alcohol. I've gone for years without having alcohol. Now I'm like I have alcohol like once a month when usually with a meal of some sort,
Hmm.
and it's always the same thing. It's uh, it's chocolate wine,
Oh,
which is not as delicious as it sounds. Imagine Yoo-hoo as an alcoholic beverage. That's what it tastes.
I used to hate that crap.
And during the holidays, there's eggnog wine, so I like the eggnog wine too. So
Believe it or not, the very first liquor I ever had was a chocolate liqueur that my parents bought. And my dad gave me like a few shots of it every when I was probably like 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. And he'd give me a shot of it every once in a while. And it tasted good, you know, to
mhm.
me. It didn't start me off on a horrible path or anything like that. Um,
Yeah, we had chocolate liqueur not too long ago. Somebody brought it over as a gift because they know I like chocolate beverages with alcohol in them. So I tried that. It was very good. That's for the coffee. A few drops in the coffee, or like a spoonful, or sometimes Bailey's. Just twice a month alcoholic beverage.
Now, Yoo-hoo was disgusting. I never liked that crap. My dad, like if we were traveling and we'd stop to like get off the road for a few minutes and get gas and whatnot. He, I, I don't I don't know why he thought this, but he thought I liked it, so he would bring me back a bottle of that stuff, and then like a pecan log from a Stuckey's or well, the two together, yuck. It's not great. I just never cared for that yoo stuff. Oh, I guess you can still buy it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's still available. I think it tastes better now. I saw vanilla yoo-hoo, and I prefer vanilla to chocolate.
Vanilla. Huh.
Tried vanilla yoo-hoo or Nesquik. I was vanilla something. It didn't taste bad.
Well, we're running out of time, and I didn't even get around to Steve Reeves yet, but we do talk about
We
Steve Reeves a lot.
we'll get back to Steve. I was going to approach you before I find out what tonight was about. Let's do a Steve Reeves special. Like we haven't done one of those in a while, and a Red
Oh,
Park special. And we'll pick our two or three favorite Peplum stars, and we'll really celebrate them.
well, we just mentioned two of them for me. Steve Reeves and Reg Park. Reg Park's movies for me, two of, well, gosh, Hercules. Yeah, he's in two of my favorite Peplum films. Now that I think about it. Hercules and the Captive Women, I like a lot.
Yeah, or Hercules
And
Conquers Atlantis is also called, when Hercules in the underworld, or
mhm,
Hercules and the vampires, or Hercules.
that's actually technically that's the best. That's certainly my favorite. Um,
That's the movie that inspired Arnold Schwarzenegger to become a bodybuilder.
well, it's lit. It's Mario. You can see that Mario Bava did it, but it's lit so well, and
Right.
he always photographed his talent in a very flattering manner. So it looks great, on screen. It's got bright colors. It's scary. It's creepy. Christopher Lee, is in it, which is awesome for me.
Yes.
Um, it for me, it's like the perfect Peplum film. Um, and in Reg Park, I think is just fabulous in it. He's just he becomes Hercules for me.
I'm also doing a new series in 2026, and you're invited if you can fit into your schedule. I'm doing the Sons of Hercules, the
Oh,
movies, and also the ancient sons of Hercules, like the plays and so forth, and the mythology and so on. And I'm bringing back Sword and Sandal for the Soul. Before I had a podcast even years ago, I had websites. So I had a feature called Sword and Sandal for the Soul, where I would focus on a particular movie, give a brief description, a paragraph or two at most, but then focus on what the message of the movie was. And sometimes it was hard to glean, but there was always something to take out of the movie. So I'm going to be starting that again, and I'll let you know when it is scheduled. And if you're interested, I'd love to have you.
sounds great. And you're right. Sometimes it is hard to figure out what the message is because there again, according to Gordon Mitchell, you heard like five, six different languages on set.
Right,
Even if you knew your lines, you didn't really know what everybody else was saying. And then it was all dubbed in the end. And sometimes it was edited for television, for broadcast, which made it even
right.
more, it made it more incomprehensible.
And with the Sons of Hercules, one of the sons of Hercules is Hercules himself, and some of the sons of Hercules were cavemen. This is so very interesting mythology they put together there. You are a legend, something that I'm always aware of, and few people might realize. You have a website called Brian's Drive-In Theater that is like a shrine to Peplum. It was up during a time when there weren't very many websites devoted to the subject, and yours was exceptional, and it still remains exceptional. And it's evolved, and yet it still holds its Peplum charm and its Peplum vibe. So that is a great accomplishment. So I'm really honored to have you on as a host here in the Sword and Sandal Cinema. And
Oh, well, thank you very much.
so how can people locate you? How can they interact with you? How can they visit the drive-in theater? Aside from Peplum, what else can they find there?
Oh gosh, there are numerous genre, film noir, peplum, westerns, very extensive horror and science fiction, serials and superheroes, and more. Just go to briansdriveintheater.com to check out all the actor profiles. There's more than 450 pages in the drive-in. Most of the pages also have a public domain film attached to them. Uh, Starring whomever the page features, and those are always fun to watch as well. And there's always a new movie of the day every day at the drive-in theater. If you want to interact with me on social media, go to Facebook and search for Brian's Drive-In Theater.
Thank you very much, my friend. That was awesome. I enjoyed speaking with you as I always do. I wish you not be as affected by the snowstorm as we were up here, and success in all your ventures. And I look forward to the next time we speak.
Okay, take care, Hercules.
You too, and to all who called in, joyous journeys, amazing adventures. Take care, everybody.